everyone, welcome to Handing the Shame Back, a channel dedicated to amazing survivors of child sexual abuse here in New Zealand and out across the world. I'm Gloria Masters, I'm your host, and we're into part 2 with Neil Milton. Now, Neil comes to us from the state of Victoria. He is the General Manager of Child Safe Australia. He's a survivor, he's an advocate, and wait, he's also the founder of Table Talk Project. Welcome back to part 2. But before he starts, there is a trigger warning. We are talking child sexual abuse, so please don't put yourself through it. If it's feeling upsetting or triggering, that's okay. Just go to the show notes below and you'll be directed for some resource and support. Over to you, Neil. Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
Welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So, Neil, we covered off in part 1 kind of your story, your experience, what happened, and yeah, I think we got to kind of the mid-20s. But what would you say the impact has been on you of all of this as you look back now?
Yeah, look, the major thing for me is that with the response of my mum and who I trusted, and for her to say you're just experimenting when in actual fact it was abuse, I realized that I didn't have a voice. Didn't have a voice in my home, couldn't talk about serious things. And in reflection, I realized that my whole life I've been looking to get my voice heard. And from the relationships I've had, for the jobs that I've had, I was a pastor in churches for 15 years. And I'm not saying that I shouldn't have done those things. What I'm saying is that every part of my life was about getting my voice heard. That I felt like I had to shout it everywhere, whatever voice that was. And I guess probably the biggest revelation that I had was that my voice is valid now, no matter who hears it. The challenge for me is that I am still wrestling with not being enough. And I understand that that is a challenge for a lot of people, because I feel like the abuse taught me that I wasn't enough. The bullying at school taught me that I wasn't enough. The response from my mum taught me that I wasn't enough. The rejection that I felt taught me that I wasn't enough. It confirmed to me what I think about myself, which is horrible to say, but it is my reality. And every day I try to change that narrative, and I look in the mirror and I say, you are enough, Neil, you are enough, Neil. And I believe that how many times I say that, like the more I say it, I reckon one day I will believe it. And I understand that whole thing is, if you believe that, if you're, there's never, you can't fully be enough, without already being enough, like, I know it sounds weird, but it's just that I know it's not an arriving point. And that's the challenge for me, is that, from relationship with my dad to, different things that have happened in my life, including that abuse, how do you get to that point where you feel like you are enough? And I think it comes back to, and I know the answer to that question is that I'm already enough. But that's what I say. It's not what I believe right now. And so that's the challenge for me. And so it's something that I'll continue to work on. But the impact has been huge, because it's about, I've always been in leadership. I have, I guess, an ability to lead people, to lead organizations, to lead things, to grow things. And so everywhere I've been, from the clubland in football to into the not-for-profit space, in church world, whatever it is, I've always been leading. And I think it's because I've had the loudest voice. I think I do have the skills to lead, but it's just that I've got the loudest voice. I can speak, I can tell my story, I can share my passions and my heart and my justice heart to make things right. And I think for me, I realized the connection point is that that I've always wanted to have my voice heard.
Yeah. So look, I'm going to come back to something. You don't really think I'm going to let all of that go, do you?
No, I don't. I don't. No,
No.
it's a lot, and I don't expect you to bring up everything. So
No, you don't think I'm going to ignore any of that. So I 100% agree with you. You can be told you are enough, and what you're speaking will resonate with many of our survivors watching. Welcome back, amazing ones. Part of what happened, and I think this might appeal to you, Neil, is when you consider what you went through as a child, and they sometimes say this, if this was a close friend of yours, and I know you've connected me with one of your close friends, would your thought be around him, he's not enough?
no, of course not.
So I just thought I'd plant that seed.
I know. I know.
The second thing I want to say is telling someone they're enough when they don't believe they are, which a lot of us as survivors feel, can actually be more damaging because we're not feeling it. So here's a little thought that might just help edge you closer. The number one, just answer some questions if you would, caller. Number one, Neil, who had the power in your home? Was it you or your dad?
Oh, definitely my dad.
Who had the power in your relationship with your mum? Was it you or your mum?
Mum,
Who had the power in the relationship between the so-called abuser and you?
definitely the abuser.
Oh,
Mm,
they could not have you think you were enough,
mm,
because had you believed that and felt that, they couldn't have kept the power over you.
mm. That's 100% true. Yeah.
I just want you to breathe that in. That'll be 120 Australian dollars, thank you. So So for survivors watching, please just don't tell yourself you're enough if you don't feel it, but just ask yourself about the power differential in all of those key relationships,
Mm.
because they don't exist in a void.
Yeah, that's right. Mm,
So Neil, moving on from that, and that may start to shift in you, because it's sometimes it's just some words someone else says that start to filter, and you might start ease or not.
mm,
But for you also, you've moved on, you met and married your lovely wife. We love her because she's always been there for you, bless. But would you like to tell us a little about what you're doing now? Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. I'll just talk a tiny bit more about the impact, because I think it's really important. There might be some dads out there, particularly, who have children. I've got 3 children. I've got a nearly 18-year-old who's got a mild intellectual disability. So he's 18 in body, but about 10 in mind, intellectually. I'm his primary carer, and an amazing guy. And I've got a nearly 16-year-old boy who's very sporty, very active, very much I'm the tough guy. Doesn't think he has, struggles with anxiety and things like that, but clearly does. And I've got a daughter that's 12 as well, and she's amazing too. I feel really blessed to be a dad. In fact, I feel very blessed to father my children and be a loving husband. What's interesting in terms of the impact is, in reflection, is the impact that I had and the power that I asserted in my voice over my wife and my children. And I realize now that that was actually about the stuff that I was talking about before around getting my voice heard. Was that so loud was my voice in my home, not in terms of like um, actually hearing it, but the power that I exerted as a strong, big boy man. I suffocated my wife's voice in the home, not really realizing it until we're 10 years married. And I'm so grateful that we actually did some work to help her to be able to speak. And now it's completely changed. She has a large voice and it's so beautiful. And also my children, and that power, that exertion, and that still comes up sometimes. My middle child and I are very, very similar. You know, they say that, you know that you're in trouble when you're looking at the same person that you were as a child, or speaking to you back at you, or as a mirror image. And I think, and we clash sometimes, and often we clash because he talks over the top of me and doesn't give me a voice. You know what I mean? And I know that's teenage behavior and all that sort of stuff, but I realized that as a dad, the best thing that I can do is hold space for them, show them that I love them, show them that I care about them, let them know that they can come to us about anything, and give them space to do that. And that's what the Table Talk project enables. But also that when things come up and I stuff up, that I admit it and say, I'm sorry. And I say, I'm sorry about that, and I've told them my story of trauma, and not in graphic details, but I've told them my story. They know that I'm recovering. I'm on that journey, and I forever will be. But the reality is that I've seen incredible empathy, incredible love from them, who have given me the kind of grace that I try to show, and empathy that I show, and so the impact is every day is huge. Like, just every day is a new way it's impacted me, and it's a learning curve for me. But the biggest impact, I think, was my wife and my kids, and I didn't even know it.
No.
And so yeah.
And I think what you're saying is very powerful and very relatable. And in case you hadn't worked it out, all you were doing, Neil, and sometimes still do with your middle child, is projection. You're just projecting onto them that which you had experienced yourself. At such a cellular level, you integrated it into who you were, and it was part of you, even though it's not something you wanted. So you were just doing what you saw. So congratulations for spotting it, seeing it, and being able to turn it round. And that's really powerful, because it takes a long time for us, to recover and heal from this type of trauma.
Yeah.
What do you
Yeah,
think?
absolutely. And I think the impact side of things is also realizing, and for me, the recovery side of things is about telling my story. Like, that's actually helped me a lot. So when I speak on stages and tell my story, when I'm talking to organizations and tell my story, when I'm talking to groups around the Table Talk project and tell my story, it's part of that recovery, because I feel like it's getting my voice heard.
Well, I heard something lovely the other day, and I know you're going to thank me for this, and so will you, amazing survivors. Every time you tell your story, you're an advocate. Did you know that?
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
one person
Mm.
that hears your story might find the courage to share theirs with a trusted someone. You guys, you don't have to do what Neil does and I do. You don't have to be on a big public platform at all. Just simply writing it out or sharing it with a really trusted friend is just one way to release it from you. Why? Because the shame never belonged to you. And as you can see today, Neil is handing the shame back even more.
Mm.
So Neil, tell us about what you're doing now.
Yeah, so I run Child Safe Australia. I've been there for nearly 7 years, and I guess the message, just to give you a quick, what is Child Safe Australia? We work with organisations to prevent harm and abuse of children. We create safe environments for children and build the kind of culture that children deserve. And so we provide child safety training, incident reporting. We provide auditing, consultancy, risk management, all those sorts of things. But the message that I try to get across is that it must be impact before compliance. So you have to understand the impact, and that you don't want to see a child abused, and you don't want to see a child's brain rewired. You don't want them to be in mental health and have a mental illness and be depressed and anxious. Like you have to understand the impact before you can understand compliance. And so what I'm saying, and that's the message I continually speak up, is that I do it through my story, because it's very hard to deny the truth of what is going on if someone is standing right in front of you that was abused in an organization. And so I do that. And then I also founded the Table Talk project, which is it's a social enterprise that focuses on an evidence-based mental health wellbeing social enterprise that focuses on supporting families to have conversations around the dinner table. Not necessarily things about this, but just getting them to talk. We realized that, and from research, over 20 years of research, that people just aren't eating at the dinner table. But when you do, the impact is huge. And from educational to, not having eating disorders, like a reduced amount of that, teenage engagement, all those sorts of things are really powerful. So we provide the recipes, the conversation starters, and a check-in to make sure everyone has a voice at the table. And that's what it's really about. I'm a dad with a dream, pretty much. Like I'm not a qualified counselor or psychologist or anything like that, but I'm just a dad with a dream that wants to give other people a better opportunity than what I had, and then that I had in my family. I want to make sure everyone had a voice. And in fact, I had a conversation with my dad when he was over a year ago, and I said, "Dad, would you use something like this if you had it back in the day?" And he said, "Yeah, I think we would have." So that was pretty profound. He didn't have a dad. He made choices based on what he felt. And so I don't blame my dad or my mum for the decisions that they made in terms of, not giving me a voice and things like that. I don't blame them for that. I don't think they were taught of what it was to have a voice. I don't think they were taught about how to actually have deeper conversations and things like that. So I wouldn't say we have the best relationship, but I wouldn't say we have the worst. I work really hard because I'm still longing for my dad to pick up the phone and give me a call at whim, just because I'm his son. That would be awesome, or my mom or whatever. So, but that doesn't happen. And that's something that I have to kind of wrestle with. And but I love the privilege of what I get to do with working with people.
Well, and one thing that is useful sometimes, Neil, be interested to know what you think of this, is, excuse me, meeting people where they are. So for your parents, it may be that it's not something they ever considered, and that their love language is different. So rather than picking up a phone and using words, they might show through an action or through a gift or through helping. And I think sometimes if we recognize, oh, that's how they show their love for me, that can help shift a whole dynamic as well. Just a thought to consider. So as we're coming into the last sort of 4 or 5 minutes, oh wise one, what ideas or tips would you give to our amazing survivors watching?
I would say that, one, it wasn't your fault. And as much as you try to believe that it was, or that someone tried to convince you that it wasn't, that you were innocent in the whole process. Now that you're aware of that and you're aware that it is abuse, I want to encourage you to take the time to speak with someone that can hold space for you so you don't push it under the carpet. One thing that I thought, this is seriously what I thought, and it seems a bit weird for me, but it is. I thought that trauma was like running a race. That was like a 5K race, not a billion-mile race. I thought that it was just a 5K race, and I could train for it. I could prepare for it. I could do all that sort of stuff. it was only probably in the last few months that I've really realized that it's not that I've made friends with my trauma. It's just that I've realized that there's not actually a finish line. It's just that you get to live with it differently. So before, I was having visceral reactions when I'd think about him. In fact, I could close my eyes right now and I could still smell his disgusting aftershave or his disgusting deodorant. I would almost panic in the shower, and I have no idea of that connection. I would, a number of different things that would happen for me. I remember shooting a basketball at the 3-point line after a bit of a time of thinking about this, and I literally couldn't get off the ground. The ball went just right in front of me, and I have no idea. And I'm a good 3-point shooter, so I don't know what happened, but my legs kind of gave out from under me, and it wasn't that I'm 45 and old playing basketball. It was just that I don't know. I just had this full disassociation kind of moment, and anyway, and so I would say, I want to encourage you to get someone to hold space for you so you don't forget about it, because it's really important. The other thing is that for me, exercise has really helped me. Now, I don't know where you're at, whether you're able-bodied, whatever's going on for you. But for me, exercise has been really helpful. Doing weights, walking, running, playing basketball with people, those sort of things. That's been really helpful. And I think it's because there's a lot of, I would say right now, my emotional tank is like up here. I don't have a lot left. And so when I'm working out and when I'm running and things like that, I find that I don't actually use emotion to do those things. It's just using energy, and I've got plenty of that. And so, yeah. And the other thing I would say as well to you is don't be afraid to do things for yourself, because you've been taught by this abuser that you don't matter and you don't deserve to buy something nice or to spend some money or whatever it is. I love shoes. I'm a bit of a shoe dog, right? I love it. And I know that and it's actually only been the last 6 to 12 months that I've really started to buy more shoes. It's not that I buy like stupid expensive ones, but just, I don't know. I feel like it's just something that I've never had the opportunity to do. And now I do sometimes. And so, and it's about being okay.
How many pairs?
Oh, maybe 20, 25.
Oh.
So not that many. I've got about 10 or 12 in boxes, but yeah, it's something that, I think it's really important to do things you enjoy.
Yeah.
Not talking drugs, alcohol, and all that sort of stuff. I'm saying do things that enjoy, that build you up.
Yeah.
And the other last thing I want to say is surround yourself with people that do give a shit about you.
Yeah. So I think that's really valuable, Neil, and there's so much there for our survivors to take away. So just as we're closing out, I just want to thank you, and so appreciate your contribution to this. I think it's really powerful. And for audience watching, there's so much that Neil shared with us today. I think one of the key takeaways for me was needing to have his voice heard. And I so love it that he connected those dots and was able to make sense of all that. Because I think as survivors, that's something in all of us, we didn't have a voice for many reasons. Mainly the power over us and the fear, etc. As a child, we couldn't speak. But using your voice, or finding your voice, or if you find that you're in a profession where that drew you in, I think that's amazing. So as we're ending today, once again, please know you're never alone. This is a safe place for you, and I'd encourage you to come and look at any of our amazing survivors that talk, because it's so impactful. I'll leave you as always with I see you, I stand beside you, and I believe you.